So today's question comes from the Ask Brojo Anything page. And the question is about self-development and relationships. What happens when you're working on your self-development, but your partner has not embraced personal growth in the same way, and you begin to feel a gap in the relationship? The question was, I'm back with my ex-girlfriend after 3 years of not being together. In those 3 years, through self-development work and coaching undertaken with Brojo, I became more self-aware. I've faced and overcome fears. I've become much more shameless and learned heaps about relationships and sex, dating, and communication skills. In those 3 years, my girlfriend did not grow that much from a self-development and self-awareness perspective, and now I'm able to see certain issues regarding low self-esteem, low self-worth issues, to the point that it's starting to affect our relationship. Should I point out to her that she needs to work on these issues? Should I try and coach her without her becoming aware of it? And should I wait until she solves these issues before moving on to marrying her? Big questions, and thanks for asking. I've here 4 specific questions, which I'm going to turn this into. Question 1. Should I marry someone whose self-awareness level feels lower than my own? Question 2. Why am I uncomfortable with this? Why am I uncomfortable with the idea that my partner's not at the same self-awareness level? What pain is that causing for me? Question 3. Should I coach my partner secretly? And question 4. How can I help my partner and other people around me to grow? So let's tackle these 4 questions. So question 1, should I marry someone whose self-awareness level is lower than my own, or feels lower than my own from my own perspective? So many of you who have coached with me or who have read my blog know that my view of a healthy relationship is that every point in the relationship you have the ability to ask the questions, are we good for each other? Are we improving each other's lives? Are we benefiting each other? Are our core values as we understand them today in alignment? And are we going in the same direction in our lives and where we want to end up? Where we want to be 5, 10, 20 years from now? And that these questions are very important questions that you want to be able to ask literally day by day, minute by minute even, and find those answers to and discuss them openly and honestly. Marriage changes the freedom to do that in certain respects. It's a much more intense form of relationship, and that has a contractual component to it. That you've essentially said the only way we can exit this relationship is at a high cost and with lots of disruption to each other's lives and potentially to the lives of family and children, and as a result, I always counsel people to look at marriage as a completely separate form of relationship from normal friendships, normal dating, even sexual relationships, is because of that contractual component to it. Now, 2 people who come together in a relationship don't need to bring the same things to the relationship in order to benefit each other. I think it's a very important thing to understand. You both don't need to have the same amount of money. You both don't need to have the same degree of social skills. You both don't need to be introverts or extroverts. You don't need to be the same strength. You don't have to have the same personalities. But there are certain key practical things that are going to become essential in any successful relationship, particularly a marriage, which I would say there is a minimum amount of self-awareness that you want to look for in a partner if you're considering a serious relationship. In practical terms, I'd say there are 3 key things. The first one is asking the question, is this person entirely dependent on you for validation? Okay? You've all heard of codependent relationships where two people are dependent on each other, and it's kind of like two trees leaning against each other and holding each other up just because they're both leaning. And it's quite an unhealthy relationship because both of them are already unstable, and if either of them shifts in any way, you'll both fall over. And this is not a situation that you want to be in. A healthy relationship, each person has a very strong degree of self-responsibility regarding their own emotions and even their own happiness. You cannot expect your partner to make you happy. Happiness doesn't work that way. So if you're entering a relationship where this person sees you as the source of their happiness, I'm going to call it, and I'm going to say it's already a lost cause. That perspective will only create misery for her, for your partner, and it's going to create a lot of misery for you as well. You both want to go into this relationship with at least a strong degree of self-responsibility for your own emotions and not be looking at the other person as the cause of your happiness, the cause of your sadness, the cause of your frustration. Your emotions are your own. And this is a very, very important thing to understand. That fundamental sense of self-worth, that you are okay by yourself with or without your partner, is an important starting point in a committed relationship. The second practical point I'd say is, can this person be absolutely direct and honest with you? If their self-awareness and their self-worth create a fear for them of losing the relationship, so much so that they are not willing to be honest about thoughts, feelings, situations, past, present, this is going to create real problems for you, particularly in practical point number 3, which is, are you able to have healthy confrontations with this person? If you cannot have healthy confrontations, you cannot course correct your relationship. You cannot make any adjustments. You cannot resolve problems. And that healthy confrontation requires the first 2 practical things. One is enough self-worth that you can take honest criticism and give honest criticism, and enough honesty that you can be true about what's going on rather than trying to cover everything up with fantasy. Very important key points. I would say those 3 practical requirements for any committed relationship, particularly a marriage, are something that you absolutely do need. Now, they don't have to be perfect, but you both have to have this understanding going into the relationship that we know how to have a healthy argument, we know how to be honest with each other, even when it's scary and even when it's going to hurt one or both of us, and that we can both stand on our own 2 feet independently, that we understand our value as individuals, and that we don't depend on this other person as completing our lives in some kind of emotional, needy way. On top of that, I want to say that the reason to get married, the why of it, is something that you both need to ask. And this is a great discussion for the 2 of you to have. A lot of people get married because they think that, hey, I've found somebody who I can have sex with for the rest of my life, I'll never be lonely again, I'll have an activity partner to go do things with, and hey, we might have kids, and we get to live in a house together, and we get to split the responsibilities of income versus keeping the house in shape and cooking and so on, and that sounds great. But the reality is that you can have a lot of those things in a non-marriage relationship. You can have a lot of those things in a non-romantic relationship with friends. You can have flatmates where you share responsibility. You can be a part of a community where you create whatever type of social dynamics you want. In a marriage relationship, I'd say that there are only a couple of a couple of important points that you really strongly want to consider. One is, can you actually improve each other's lives? The goal of getting together with someone is not to maintain the status quo. It's to move ahead further and faster than you can on your own. This is what all relationships, in my view, should be about, is that you together are better than you are apart as individuals. Okay, this is an important question to ask. At the very least, it's a goal. How do I improve this person's life? How does this person improve my life? How do we work together to create a better future? Second question is, are you absolutely committed to each other and your relationship? If there are any question marks here, like I'll stay with this person as long as I feel in love with them, or I'll stay with this person as long as they make me feel happy, that's not someone you want to marry. And the third point is, are you values compatible? Very, very important one. A lot of people don't even know what values are. As someone who's into self-development and valued living, this is a very, very core one, is that you need to know what their values are, and you need to know what your values are, and you need to know that where you're likely to experience conflict and where you're able to grow fastest together because you both want the same things out of life. It's very, very important. You need to be climbing the same mountain. So I want to say these things about marriage because marriage is such a big question. It's not something that you want to go into lightly. You want to have very clear reasons why you want to do it. Perhaps it's because you want to have children. Perhaps it's because you've decided that you're no longer interested in dating and meeting new people. You found one person and you just want to grow as deeply and as far as possible with them as you can for the rest of your life. And these are beautiful things. But make sure you know why you're considering this. Don't consider it lightly. So let's go to the second question, which is, why am I uncomfortable with this? Why am I uncomfortable with the idea that my partner may not be at the same level of emotional self-awareness, psychological self-awareness as I am? Now, I'd say that there are probably 3 core reasons why this feels uncomfortable to you. And these are mostly for you to step back and reflect on and grow through. The first one I'd suggest is probably your expectations. Now, we just said before that both partners do not need to bring the same thing to the relationship. You can each contribute different things. And in fact, that's one of the most beautiful ways to create a relationship, is that you each fill in each other's weaknesses. You each fill in the gaps to create the best possible situation for living through what you each bring to the relationships. If you're both bringing the same thing, imagine a potluck dinner where everybody brings a meat dish. It's all right, but it would be nicer to have a nice balance of meat and vegetables and dessert and drinks and so on. So consider that. If your expectation is your partner is supposed to be like you, then look at adjusting that expectation. Let your partner be different and cherish those differences. You're into psychology, you're into self-challenge, you're into self-growth. These are beautiful things for you. They may not be beautiful things for your partner, so be accepting of that. Look for the areas that your partner wants to grow in and help her nurture those rather than trying to make her a clone of you and drag her along the same path that you've gone. I think that's very important. Check your expectations. Item 2, judgment. So one of the things that I found in my early self-development days was that as I began progressing, I began noticing limitations I'll call them limitations in my partners as well, where they weren't as easily able to confront their own emotions or question things going on in their life and question their reactions to things going on in their life. And it took me a bit aback. And I had a similar reaction, whereas, wow, this girl struggles with anger, let's say, in one particular case that I can remember. And I immediately judged that as almost like looking at a school child who's throwing a tantrum. And I thought, wow, this is not attractive to me. This is not the way that I would deal with it. This is not. I felt that it was somehow beneath me. And that sense of judgment, it can be very, very harsh and very critical. And it's not necessarily helpful or healthy to you or to your relationship. Your goal in embracing a partner in your life isn't to set some minimum standard that keeps rising as you need to stay above this high water mark, or else our relationship isn't going so well. Your goal is to embrace them and accept them for who they are. The growth that you get out of this relationship is as much about you confronting your own judgmental tendencies and your own fears that this person and you might potentially be growing apart someday. It's about your personal benefit, right? You don't need to judge them. So double check that. Make sure that you're in a healthy place in your head in terms of how you're looking at them and evaluating yourselves. And be very fair. If you look at yourself through their eyes, what do they see? Okay? I guarantee, self-development's like an onion. You peel 100 layers, you still got, another infinite number of layers to go. You just keep going further and further. There's always something else to work on. And I can pretty much guarantee you that in certain areas of self-development, your partner is further along than you are. Perhaps it's in social skills. Perhaps it's in self-awareness of emotions. Perhaps it's in an understanding of what makes her happy. It could be any number of different things. So understand that you're not comparing apples to apples here. And if you're trying to judge an orange by its appleness, you're just creating unnecessary pain for yourself and your partner. The third thing that I find makes this situation quite uncomfortable is likely going to be shame. So again, in my own self-development experience, when I started to crack through the glass ceiling on some of my strongest limitations, and started to look back on my life, I felt quite a bit of shame that regarding my past, regarding where I had come from and how I had limited myself for so many years, all those opportunities to connect with people that I had missed, all those moments of fear that had kept me from pursuing something that I really wanted in my life. My life was full of these, and I felt ashamed of them, that this was wrong. It shouldn't have happened that way. It was due to my own daftness, right? Now, this same shame that you felt about your past, that you probably still feel about your past, now that you feel above that, is shame that is very easy to project on your partner. When you see them exhibiting behaviors that you identify as being similar to your own past behaviors, you will probably feel some pain watching that, and you'll want to correct it in the same way that when you catch yourself doing it, you'll be like, no more people pleasing, no more nice guy stuff, no more letting fear govern all my decisions and limit me, and that's fine, but that's only fine for you. Okay, you can apply those checks and balances to your own behavior and your own thought processes. You cannot hold them up as a standard that you expect other people, even your partner, to also comply with. She has not opted in to challenge herself in those ways. She's challenging herself and growing in other ways. So accept that. Okay, accept that. Very important. Don't let yourself project your shame onto the people closest to you in your life. And I want to call this out straight away. You're going to see the same thing happen when you have children. Okay, you'll see them growing and challenging themselves and dealing with whatever fear and dealing with social anxiety and dealing with all these different things. And your memories will come back hard and strong. And there's a saying that oftentimes the worst person to ask for help with, say, alcoholism is an ex-alcoholic. And the reason is that they've come to a place where once they've overcome the alcoholism, they've got absolutely zero tolerance for it. They can't help you through it in a meaningful way. They simply judge you for being weak and for not just being able to just give it up. And that's because they judge themselves so harshly. Okay, so that shame is a very, very important thing to keep a handle on. So 3 things, 3 causes of why you're uncomfortable with this: expectations, judgment, and shame. Dig into those and do a lot of reflection and journaling around these. Be very, very important, because it will be so easy for you to cause continual damage to your relationship, irreparable damage to your relationship probably, if you don't have a handle on those. Let your partner be different. Okay, that's totally fine. She's not your responsibility. Only you are. So let's go to the third question. Should I coach my partner secretly? Now, obviously, I have to call out first and foremost the point, secretly. And it's very tempting to say that, hey, I know what in my past made me unhappy. I know what processes helped me develop through and beyond that limitation, and I can help others through that. And even if your motivations are 100% compassionate and not about self-interest or self-benefit at all, it's absolutely not fair to manipulate somebody into changing who they are. Okay? You wouldn't want somebody to do it to you. Don't do it to somebody else. So first and foremost, any kind of self-development, any kind of personal growth that you ever end up helping your partner with needs to be absolutely open and only by permission and direct invitation. At no other time should you be seeking to change or influence their behavior. You're not raising a dog here. You're not training a dog to behave. This is your partner. She is your equal. Even though sometimes your brain says, I don't know, I feel above this person. If that happens, you really need to step back and have a look at what your brain is doing and how you're measuring and evaluating and judging the people around you. So, don't do it secretly, first of all. Now, let's ask the broader question, should I coach my partner? Now, to be perfectly honest, I do coach sometimes the women in my life. And the reason is pure compassion. But it's very challenging. First of all, coaching itself is challenging. You really want to know what you're doing. It's a little bit like open heart surgery. You're messing around with someone, directing their attention to certain things, influencing the way that and challenging the way that they think while they're thinking, while they're alive on the operating table. So this is very, very delicate work that you want to be very aware of what you're doing and very, very aware of why you're doing it. So I never coach anyone unless they directly ask me to, and no matter how much I want to. Now, that may not prevent me from calling something out. Hey, I noticed that you seem to struggle with anger. Have you ever stepped back and thought about that? Do you want to talk about it? Have you seen anybody about it? How does it affect your life? Are you even aware of it? And you can do that, but that's very different from coaching. Simply calling something out, inviting them to have a look at something or have an open discussion. Coaching is very different. Coaching is about changing the way someone thinks. Okay, it's not quite hypnotism where they're completely unaware of it, but at the same time, it is very manipulative, and you only want to do it with absolute permission. As always, flip the coin, turn this around. Would you want somebody changing you without your knowledge or permission? And I'm sure the answer is no. I hope the answer is no. So, let's go a little deeper on the coaching side. One of the challenges with coaching a partner is that it requires a level of honesty and an ability to confront that most romantic relationships never achieve. If you're in the space where you can be completely honest with each other, including like, hey, I'm sexually attracted to this other person, or someone hit on me and then I reacted badly, I didn't know what to say, and then later I felt badly about it. That level of honesty is what we're talking about here. And it's going to be very, very difficult to do with your partner, even if it's just out of fear of causing them emotional distress. That means that in order for her to be completely honest with you, in order for her to be coachable by you, she has to believe 100% that there is absolutely nothing she can say that would push you away. How possible is that? Let's be honest. Even if it were true, how likely is it that she believes that 100%? Okay, so long story short, it will be very difficult to coach your partner. You can offer basic coaching around things like emotions and so on. But if she is interested in personal growth, find her a coach that is not you. You're really going to need to do that, and to make sure that it's done right. So let's go to the fourth question. Since direct coaching is probably not an option for the people in your life, not your partner, not your children, not your parents, probably not even your siblings, right? These people are much too close and much too important. You need to protect them, right? They're too close to you to give the level of honesty and to be confronted in a way that you can usually do in that type of relationship. So how can you help the people around you grow? And there are a lot of different ways. Obviously, people can change if they want to. That change has to come from within. It's not something that you can enforce from the outside, right? So the easiest ways to encourage someone to consider challenging themselves and growing through that self-directed challenge is to be an example. If you continually invest in your own self-development and keep growing and keep first asking, how can I be the best person I can be in this situation? Where is my thinking flawed in this situation? Where are my emotions affecting my behavior in unhelpful ways? If you're always asking these questions about yourself first, not only will you be far happier regardless of what's going on with your partner, but you will be a kind of a shining beacon of self-awareness and self-control that the people around you can't help but see. Pretty soon they'll start asking questions. How is it that you're able to deal with this idiot boss who's such a jerk? Or how is it that you're able to deal with such high stress situations and still be happy and smile? Whatever's going on, people will see how you react to that differently than they do. And when they see that, that's when they'll start asking questions almost unavoidably in their own head. How come he's got it so much easier? And if you keep up your self-development, you make that very obvious that here's the kind of work that I'm doing, here's how I journal, here's where I invest in my coaching, these are the articles that I read, these are the books that I fill my head with, here's how often I meditate, here's how I invest in my health and my fitness and nutrition. Every different aspect of your life, people will see that. If you make it obvious, people will see it and then start to ask questions when they think it's doing you some good that they would like to see in their life as well. Be very careful. Manage your desire to push change on other people. This will be a lifelong battle, particularly with the people closest to you. It's something you really have to rein in, particularly regarding your partner and your children. So be very, very aware of that. The mindset that I encourage you to go into is the old adage: be the candle, not the moth. If you project the light from your self-development, if you show that off, you will attract people who are interested. People who aren't interested won't be attracted. Don't chase them and try to give them personal growth. It doesn't work. You can invite people regularly and gently to explore things more with you. Say, hey, I'm interested in going to a meditation class. I found it's really helped me deal with uncomfortable emotions. Are you keen to check it out with me? Okay. Oh, no, not today. So you ask them again in a week or 2 weeks until they say, nah, I'm actually not interested at all in meditation. And you give them space. But keep pursuing your own self-development. Remember that a huge part of what we're talking about here is about responsibility. Self-responsibility, all yours. Grab it 100%. Develop yourself to the max. Don't hold back, no matter how much of a gap you feel it creates between you and your partner. The truth is, the more self-aware you are and the more aware you are of your emotions, the easier it will be for you to deal with the differences between you and your partner, and probably the greater you'll appreciate the growth that they help give you. That friction that they create in your relationship is actually good for you, in the same way that weights at the gym are good for you, right? You need them. So cherish that. Cherish your partner's differences. Cherish where they are stronger than you in certain areas of life. perhaps more empathetic, perhaps more socially adept. Who can say? Look for those things. Don't expect them to be the same as you. I would also just remind you again, be extremely, extremely non-judgmental. The moment that you come off as even a scent of thinking that you are higher than this other person, the people around you, in terms of your personal growth, the more interactions with you will feel like they're being preached to, or that you're a snob. It will make self-development very unapproachable, just as you become unapproachable. So the key thing is be very, very accepting. Watch out for judgment. Never see anybody as being less than you. Just simply see yourself as growing and open to share that growth with anyone who wants to be a part of it. If you see a problem in someone in your world, your partner, your children, whatever, that you would like to challenge, you can ask to challenge it. You can basically ask for permission. Say, hey, I've noticed something regarding, we'll use anger issues as an example. Know something about, you get angry, you seem angry every time you get off the phone with your mother. Just painting a scenario here. Seems like you're really unhappy. How's that going for you? Would you like to talk about it? Okay? And then you can get into deep and meaningful discussions. Never force this situation on them, particularly when you're talking about emotions. You're just as likely to make yourself part of the problem as you are part of the solution. So be very, very delicate about it. Always seek to find, identify, and respect their boundaries. Okay? And focus your attention on your own problems. One of the things with self-development is that as you grow, as you start to overcome certain limitations, you start to see them in all the people around you. I found it quite fascinating that as I began overcoming my own social anxiety, I started seeing social anxiety everywhere I walked down the street, in other people. And part of me, my heart went out to them, and part of me was like, wow, I feel like I should help this person. They can't be happy that way. That's a judgment, okay? I wasn't happy that way, but that's what pushed me forward towards pursuing change. They need that discomfort too. And maybe it will motivate them to change, and maybe they're perfectly fine where they are. That's totally up to them, not my responsibility. So you have to be very careful about putting your own values on other people. They are different people with different values and goals in their lives. Respect that. And one more point on this, in terms of how can you help other people grow around you, is share your own experiences. A great example is if you were vegan and everyone you knew was not. You can't push veganism on them. You can't judge them. You can't say, wow, that's so unhealthy, or that's so cruel, or so you're not going to get anybody listening to you. They're basically all going to hate you and probably eat more meat, right? So in this situation, rather than saying you should do this because it will help you, you have no way of knowing that. All you know is it's helped you. So what you can say is, hey, when I made this change to my diet, I started to notice I lost weight. I slept better. I had less anger issues. I felt more comfortable and less stressed. Digestion was better. Whatever. These personal experiences. You're simply sharing the only thing you know is true, which was, how did this change affect you personally? The invitation then is implicit. You might find similar benefits. Up to you. You might want to give it a go. This is what I experienced. That's it. Same with all forms of personal growth. Any area of your life where you change and you find yourself better off, you can openly share that, but share it from your own perspective as to how it impacted you. Your results may vary. So always keep that in mind. And most importantly, one of the temptations that you're going to face in having a partner who's not growing and not into self-development in the same way is that you may think, if I keep growing like this, we're going to be even further apart. Maybe I should hold back and kind of just not push myself too much further in my self-development. And I would say that that is a huge mistake. In my own experience, the exact opposite is true. The more I invest in my self-awareness, the more I journal, the more I meditate, the more I grow, the far more easily I am able to deal with my own challenges around judgment and around expectations and around shame around my past. And the more open and the more easily I can maintain and build relationships with people who are different from me. And that's very, very important. It's very important. So keep moving forward. Even invest more in yourself and stop trying to change others. Good luck, and I hope that this works out great.